I'll be honest, over 20 years in this industry, I've actually never seen a system of training like this, where there's actually kind of a flow chart of like, this is how you progress somebody and this is how you regress somebody.
Hi, I am Kelly Berry, VP of Operations here at Fitness Revolution. And here at FR, we empower fitness business owners to build and grow profitable fitness businesses that they are passionate about. And we do that through a combination of our coaching process, our content, and our proprietary fitness business alignment system. We provide the long-term solution to ending burnout in fitness business owners. So welcome back to our What's Working Now content series, where we are surfacing and sharing what's working right now. I'm really excited for this episode today. We are going to be talking with Cory Cripe of Fitness Lying Down in LaCrosse, Wisconsin, about something that he's not only super passionate about, but something he's really, really good at, which is sandbag training. And it's not just any sandbag training. Cory's going to walk us through all of that in just a few minutes, but that is what we're here to talk about. So who is Cory? Cory, I have actually the honor and the pleasure of working with Cory. I'm his success coach at FR, so I'm excited for you all to get to know him better as well. Professionally, Cory has a BS in exercise and sports science with an emphasis in fitness and a concentration in strength and conditioning. Got his degree from UW-LaCrosse. That's right, Cory. Yes, and all the way back in 2001. Nice. For some of us, that doesn't seem like all the way back, but it's a while ago. Something super interesting about Cory, he did an internship with the Chicago Bulls strength and conditioning staff in August of 2001. He has been in the fitness industry ever since then, carried out a lot of different roles like personal trainer, manager, corporate wellness director, all the way up to 2014, which is when he opened his own studio, Fitness Lying Down. He then became a DVRT master trainer in 2017, and since then he's been running his business, instructing DVRT workshops, certifications, and other corrective exercise courses nationwide. Let's just get right into what we're here to talk about. So we are here to talk about DVRT and ultimate sandbag training. I mentioned that Cory is a master trainer. So not only does he train others on the system, he uses it in his own gym and have you used it since you started your gym, or is it something that you incorporated once you got started?
Yeah, great question. No, I incorporated it. This is the reason why I started Fitness Lying Down, was I wanted to revolve around what I thought was just the ultimate sandbag. I went to a Perform Better summit, kind of got juked into going into one of these hands-on. I had no business. I wanted nothing to do with sandbags, really had no idea about it. But I was at a point in my career where I wasn't really too happy where I was in the fitness industry. I was getting bored and I was getting burnt out. And this, as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And so I found myself with these ultimate sandbags and I was like, this is amazing. And I was just thinking to myself, if I ever start a gym, I kind of wanted to revolve around this because this is quite unique.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm sure that's where you met Josh Henkin there.
Yep. Yeah. He was the guy doing the hands-on, and in Josh's form, the hands-on was titled, how to improve your group training experience. And I'm like, well, absolutely. That's what I want to do. And then I just walk in, I'm thinking, what the heck are these things on the floor? And to be honest with you, Kelly, the first exercise that he introduced us to back, this was before 2014. This must've been like 2012, somewhere around there, was that we did a certain exercise, and I've had a problem with low back pain and, whatever for most of my adult life. And I went to do the first exercise, first rep on the first day, the first hour of this 3-day summit, and I tweaked my back. And I was like, oh no, because I just knew typically when something like that happens, I'm going to be on the sidelines. It's going to, I can't do anything. This is the first day, first hour of a 3-day workshop. And it was the next cue that he gave. He said, make sure that you really, we're holding the bag in what we call a front loaded position. He's telling us, really pull the bag into your body, grip the ground with your feet, and I did that for the second rep, and I came back out of it and there was no back pain. I was like, well, that's crazy. And for the rest of the summit, there was no effect of any kind of low back issue. And that's actually, so it wasn't just the bag, there was something to this. And as you mentioned, 2001 wasn't that long ago for a lot of us, but in the fitness industry, it'd been around for a while. And so to date myself, there was really no Facebook at the time to follow this on. So I had to do, YouTube was pretty new. So I had to start following on YouTube and subscribe to the newsletters and all the information coming out of DVRT. I was eating it up because it felt like finally there was answers to my questions when it came to how to better train somebody, how to better program. And so that when it came time to start Fitness Lying Down, and the great thing is that the equipment bought some sandbags and it didn't cost us a lot of money. And we started from there, and now we have quite a few sandbags.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Josh is a longtime friend of us here at FR. We used to have him speak at a lot of our events, especially when we were doing a lot of events that involved like training education. So I personally have filled and moved and hundreds of sandbags over those years of prepping for those events. So yeah, that's awesome. So I guess tell us a little bit. So, most of the people who are going to be watching and listening to this, they have a gym, they're using, their own training methodology. Talk a little bit about like how somebody could just start using sandbags or why they would want to in their gym.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point, great comment. And to kind of add to that though, is that a lot of people think DVRT is just sandbags. So it's like, okay, it's sandbag training and, but I could do barbell stuff. I could do this. But DVRT in itself is a system of training, and it's not just exclusive to the ultimate sandbag. We can use kettlebells. We can use resistance bands. We can use suspension trainers, body weight, some other functional training tools, as we like to call them. So that's the neat thing about this is that it's not like you have to just invest in sandbags to make this go. You might be a gym that has kettlebells already and you're using resistance bands, but how you can use the system to better improve your training experience, your programming experience, and your client's experience as well. That's where I think that this really sets itself above. I'll be honest, over 20 years in this industry, I've actually never seen a system of training like this, where there's actually kind of a flow chart of like, this is how you progress somebody and this is how you regress somebody. And which is very pivotal when somebody comes into your gym. And, the last training session was 100%. They rocked it. All of a sudden they come in and they just had a bad day. Instead of lowering the weight on everything, which is typically an answer, and that's one of the variables, because DVRT stands for dynamic variable resistance training. So that certainly is one of the variables that you could adjust in that program. But as we find out through the system is that there's a lot of other variables that you can use. So for instance, let's just say we're doing an exercise with the ultimate sandbag. We're pressing overhead. So the bag's resting on our fist and we're standing on both feet because that's typically how we usually press over our head. And, you got to weight. So whatever that weight is, 20, 30, 40 pounds. And usually what will happen is that somebody does this exercise and they're like, you know what, this is getting kind of easy. Can we go up and weight? And that's kind of like, but wait, there's more for you. And so I'll take them from a standing position and I'll change their body position. So now I put them on both knees, which everybody will tell you is exponentially more difficult to press. So now that same weight, whether it's 20, 30 or 40 pounds, has increased 5 to 10 pounds without even changing the load. So that's the neat thing about that is you don't have to go moving around sandbags, which makes it really ideal for like a group training experience when you got a bunch of people going around and you're trying to shuffle weight around. Like, okay, you use this weight instead of that weight. Let me exchange for you. And time is priceless, as we know in group training. We can't just sit there and be exchanging weights and eating up the clock. So if we can put somebody on both knees, then that makes it challenging. And then if it's still a little bit easy, we can go to what we call a half kneeling position. So now you're kind of like at the bottom of the lunge. And the great thing about this is now you have frontal plane instability. So you're trying to press up and down, but you have to resist side to side motion. And that really ties in a lot of things, especially through the core muscles, as everybody likes. I mean, that's kind of the fad word for how many decades now. But in reverse, if you had somebody come in and they're going to be pressing on both knees, but they're having an off day, they don't feel 100%. Well, I might, without them even knowing it, be like, okay, let's take you up to both feet now. Like, I'm not going to put you on your knees. You're just going to stand overhead press. I'm not changing the weight. And they're like, yeah, that feels good. Where before it might have just like, it might have crossed that threshold for them and have been too much. Their body might have, their mind might have been ready for that. So that's, I think, one of the big things I love about DVRT is the system. So whether you're using kettlebells or resistance bands or ultimate sandbags. The great thing though, about using the ultimate sandbag is the feedback mechanism. So as I mentioned earlier, the first exercise that I did, we had a bag in the front loaded position. So what that means is that it's high and tight on your chest and the crook of your arms. And so it's not to be confused with like a front squat kind of position where you're holding a barbell. But because you can have such a tension building experience with the ultimate sandbag and the top part of your body, that helps to connect the lower part of your body. So we've seen people that are unable to do lunges, and we know on the training floor, how do you solve the lunge problem? How can you help people build a better lunge without just saying, keep doing the poor ones, you're doing more, because eventually it's going to get better. And so if I put that ultimate sandbag in that front loaded position, I can use that as a form of feedback. So as they're driving down into that lunge, they can push their body into the bag as a way to help them lower and to rise out of that lunge. So it's not just about using the bag for resistance purposes, which it surely does, but you can also really use it for feedback purposes to help people learn a pattern better.
Yeah. So who do you work with at Fitness Lying Down? What's your ideal client like? Age, what are the people that you find benefit the most from training like this?
Well, who benefits the most is, I know this sounds like such a blanket term, but everybody. Who's my ideal client? Somebody that's around my same age that has no injuries. Love that. Love those people. But I like to think of Fitness Lying Down as the land of misfit toys. We have so many people that come to us from other gyms that just have been burnt by other gyms, like their model of intensity is that you're just jumping forever. Well, people end up with pain knees. As I mentioned, the lunge problem, well, just keep doing more lunges. It'll get better. Well, their knees hurt. Their backs hurt when they squat. Their shoulders hurt when they overhead press. And they come to us because they've heard how we've actually helped. And I always tell people, like, this is a gym. We don't fix people, but we can help you be better by having a better awareness of your movement patterns, by helping you understand what the intent of the exercise is rather than just the task. I think a lot of gyms chase the task for good reasons because, hey, we got to get work done. But when you have somebody that's coming in that's 60, 70 years old, that's got problems with their knees, we got to have better solutions for them. And that's what I love to say that we have with DVRTs. We have better solutions for the people. So as I mentioned, all these different progressions, we might have, I think of our group training. We have different stations as most gyms would have, like that's just the most efficient way. But in that station, we're going to have 3 different levels of exercises. So exercise 1, and it's not about the weight, but exercise 1 might be the lowest progression squat that we have. So that's going to help somebody learn more of that squat pattern. Where level 2 is, again, the intermediate. So maybe we change how we're holding the bag or our body position. And then level 3 is just a really advanced thing that you have to have earned to get to that level. So that's what we always like to say is we're not going to let you just jump to the level. You have to show us first that you're proficient in the previous level before you get to move to the next level.
Awesome. And you have just started training a few athletes.
Yes.
Correct.
Just recently.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell me, how are you using the system to help them with, I think it's just kind of like some off-season strength conditioning. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just something that fell into our laps. We weren't searching for this, but their mom happens to be one of our clients, and she's really enjoying the philosophy. That's the thing is you get a lot of clients here that this is totally new for them. It was new for me in the beginning as well, but it's like, I've never seen anything like this. I've never had so much success because my low back pain isn't happening when I do deadlifts, all this. And she just knew that her daughters being young athletes, middle school and high school, could benefit from this kind of system of training. And so as they come in, we're using it. Here's what we do though, because it's a system, you have a starting spot. So like anybody else, we start them there. And I think any of your listeners out here that are following along, just imagine yourself with an adolescent female, trying to teach them how to deadlift, how to hinge. It's such a train wreck. What is the way that we could do this that is impactful and meaningful to the point that they're going to remember the pattern? I know there's some tricks that we've used in the past that initially okay, the hinge is cleaned up. We'll put like a PVC on their back and we'll have them hold on to that. So as they go to the hinge, keep your head, shoulders, and your sacrum on that PVC. But that really doesn't have a lasting effect to when they now have to address, let's say, a kettlebell, a barbell, a sandbag. So there's better ways, there's better external cues that we can use through the ultimate sandbag using DVRT that can help clean up that hinge, which is a pretty important movement pattern for life and especially in sports. So we're not taking any chances. We're not being like, okay, you girls are athletes. Let's just dive into all the hard stuff first. They need a good foundation of strength. That's what all athletes need right away is that foundation of strength then you can start building on top of other things. And so for us, yeah, we build that foundation of strength. And then we can start having fun as we resist planes of motion, as we begin to move into planes of motion, all these different planes of motion, because that's real life, but that's also life on the court, life on the field, is that you're not just doing sagittal up and down, forward and backwards. There's a lot of rotation that could be happening, a lot of lateral shifting, cutting, things like this that we had to prepare the body for so that it can be strong to resist. And that's kind of our big thing here, is that strength isn't so much about what you can lift. It's about what you can resist, to be resilient in these different planes of motion so you can become efficient in your movement.
Nice.
Yeah.
So a couple of like kind of closing questions before we get into like how people can learn more about it. But what is your absolute favorite thing about using Sandbags in the DVRT system?
I mean, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but especially as a trainer, though, making programs has never been more fun. So having that know-how of like what the next level of training is. So it's a lot of our advanced clients. I mean, we have such a sustainable environment here, as you know, being my coach, and you see our retention rates and things like this, that I'll take people, like we have some advanced people, I'll take them all the way to the top of like the highest form of advancement, of progressions, you know, bags on the shoulder. They're in a split squat position, doing a little bit of a rotation through their shoulder. I mean, all this different stuff. But then we'll always go back to the basics. But every time we go back to the fundamental exercises, those baseline exercises, the bag has now become, or the kettlebell or whatever, has become extremely heavier than the first time. So there's a different meaning because their squat, their hinge, their press, whatever that exercise might be, has become so strong because they've built up so much resiliency in their body as they do this. So as we're making programs now, it's a lot easier for me than just trying to like rack my brain against what should we do to improve this client's, you know, X, Y, or Z. It's okay. Here's where they've been. Here's where I know they're going. And here's how we're going to get there. And I know that now it's time that we start moving in this different plane of motion. It's time that we move the bag over here. Instead of a bag, we're going to use a kettlebell or vice versa. So that for me is such a great thing. But it's also, as I mentioned earlier, how that we can make an audible at the line during the training experience. So for instance, I had a gentleman in the other day, of course, doesn't tell me about this when he comes in, but he goes to do an exercise and I kind of see him like wince, and you know, he moves the weight down quickly to set it down. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, my shoulder's kind of pinchy today. And say, okay, well, I wish you would have told me this earlier. But without having to really do a lot of thinking anymore, because this has become so automatic for me, I can be able to make a difference in his programming that takes that shoulder problem away, and he's still able to work the shoulder. So we don't avoid the spots. We actually work with what's happening because we're so much more knowledgeable about how the body moves and how to train that. So the whole reason why I went to school for this, because I was loving, you know, working out, strength training, as most people do, and that's why they want to do this longer, is now I could take the fun I was having and start applying it with some science. And even in the university level, I don't think there was a lot of that going on per se. It's when I started having to go down the rabbit holes, learning more about movement stuff, learning about this. And then finally I stumbled upon DVRT, that I could put this all together so I can make a quick change at the line and not lose my cool. Because I know sometimes old Cory, if somebody got quasi injured in the, I should say young Cory, I'm old now. But if somebody got injured on the training floor, I flip out a little bit. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. Like, okay, let's either call it a day or let's just skip that exercise entirely. But now it's like, nope, you know, we're going to keep working this, but we're going to change the level of intensity by X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I don't know. You know, I know a lot of people love to program, but I would say the majority of the people, if they've been doing it for a long time, they probably don't describe programming as having fun. You know, it's just kind of something that's got to be done. So that's
well, and
cool.
the great thing as well is as you generate more and more clients, there's more and more programs to create, and we're not a cut, copy, and paste kind of gym. So, you know, all the clients, they're paying us for that service of personal training. So we've got to make sure this is personal. But because there is such a system that not only have I learned, but my other coaches here have learned, that one of my coaches actually has taken over a lot of the programming. And of course I monitor, I approve a lot of it. You know, I'm looking through it, but she understands how that goes. Like, okay, here's the next progression. Here's where we're going. This is the sequence of exercises in the program in itself. So it's actually really easy to systemize and teach other people that you don't have to be sitting there over the weekend, missing time with your family because you've got to get ready for the next week's programs.
Yeah, that's huge. So next question, what is your favorite exercise?
I kind of like feel like,
I'm sure,
yeah,
I'm sure it changes all the
I
time.
feel like favorite exercises is kind of like, your favorite song. It's like, well, it kind of depends on the season.
Mhm.
I have been really enjoying step ups recently.
Okay.
And one of the ways that I like to do a step up is, surprise, surprise, with an ultimate sandbag.
Hmm.
And I will put the ultimate sandbag on a shoulder. And so I really have to resist because the bag now higher up on my body and the shoulder, like you can hold a kettlebell in a rack position, but because that implement is so close to the midline of your body, you have more stability, you have a little more control. But when I take a heavy ultimate sandbag and I throw it on my shoulder, well, that's farther away from the midline. There's more frontal plane things that want to happen. So as I'm driving up on a really high box, and what we've learned is that step ups are not like the old 1980s and 90s Jane Fonda and jazzercise things, but to really have that high box and create that tension through the middle that you can effortlessly, well, I should say effortlessly, efficiently come up on. And then here's the goal with the step up is the step down. So you're not crashing down. So the whole time that I'm going up and down on this box and I've got like a really heavy bag on my shoulder, there's so many things going on that you have to focus on. And one of the reasons why I love DVRT, one of the many reasons, is you can't be thinking about what you're eating for supper tonight.
Yeah.
What's going on later on in my life. I mean, you have to be all in focused on that exercise or you could fall over. So it's a great thing. Our clients, I mean, they come in for an hour session, the hour's over, and they can't believe how quickly that session went. And I think a lot of clients, they come in and they know they need exercise. They know they need a strength train. And we're trying to make it such an environment that's inviting and fun. But when you really have to focus on the intention of the movement, you're not even worried about the clock anymore. You're so honed in that it's like, okay, oh, it's time to go. Wow, I didn't even realize that it was that time.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like what a lot of people want is just to be present, like kind of escape all of those other things, focus on themselves, and really be in the moment, which sounds like that's what they need to be doing. So awesome.
Yeah, well, yes.
Well, thanks. We're at time. So I know you mentioned there are some upcoming maybe workshops, certification, if you want to speak to those a little bit. And then if anybody has any questions, how can they reach you?
Yeah,
best?
absolutely. Yep. So we are in October actually holding in LaCrosse, Wisconsin at Fitness Lying Down, which I like to call the DVRT Mecca. We're having a level 1 certification along with a DVRT corrective exercise course. So one will be on a Friday and I forget what the dates are, but it's in October. And I'll tell you where to find that. But we'll have a Saturday and a Sunday. So all day Saturday for one, all day Sunday for the other. You can choose to do both. You can choose to do one and or the other. You can go to DVRT Ultimate Sandbag Fitness and go to their courses, find that out. I can share that link. So that could be available. If you do have any questions about that, however, I and Fitness Lying Down are highly available online. You can either email me at fitnesslyingdown, all one word, at gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at Fitness Lying Down. See this October 14th and 15th. I got staff 14th. That's here listening. October 14th and 15th. Anyway, so you can find us. Back.
Awesome.
Yes, you get a raise. Yeah. So Facebook, Instagram, you can find us at Fitness Lying Down, and you could direct message us or anything like that. And we're very active on that. So your message won't be sitting there for hours and days waiting to get answered.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, Cory. That was great. Definitely apparent how much you love DVRT and sandbags. And, hopefully that was beneficial. I'm sure people have seen them or have wondered about them. So now they know where to go if they have more questions.
I truly hope they do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your time with us today. We'll talk to you later.
I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
All right. Bye.